how do you encourage educators to consider whether or not the interdisciplinary experiences that they're designing are complementary in nature or are problematic in terms of being subservient? So as an example, like when I used to teach music classes, like I had a math teacher come up and be like, oh, well, I want you to create a song to teach math facts. That was using music in a subservient relationship to math. Like it had no creative abilities on the students' end related to music. They were literally just going to sing math facts. Another example in computer science, there's like a dozen or so papers that I can readily point to that in the abstract it says the purpose of creating this interdisciplinary course was to increase enrollment in computer science classes. That is putting whatever other subject area you pair this with in a subservient relationship to computer science. So how do you help educators understand that there are problematic and unproblematic ways of actually combining multiple disciplines in some kind of educational experience?
Oh, that is a great question, because I think back to my earlier comment about computer science being weaponized as a knowledge, right? Like that you can't really teach this because you don't really know the ontology, the epistemology, you don't know this discipline deeply. And yet that is also a fair characterization if we held it steady with other ways of knowing, right? You don't have an education degree, so you're talking about education. So as we put these things together, I think it's not only the disciplinary knowledge we make subservient, we also think about who gets to make those decisions, who's coming in with the funding. It's not the language arts people coming in with funding and saying, hey, please partner with me, I have funding. It's the other way around. So those power issues are so huge when we think about who's gotten the most funding, what is this infusion of money into schools. It's not writing a check to the principal's discretionary fund. It's for computer science education or computing across the disciplines. So I think there's also, we're not coming in with these disciplines really on the same political ground, that they're being privileged in different ways. Maybe one in the school system because it's being assessed in high stakes tests, and the other from these outside entities because jobs and national security and CS is everything. And so it's the little apples and oranges as it comes together, because whose odds wins out. And if it gets to where the school says, hey, we have so many other mandates, we're already an underperforming school, maybe that will win out and computer science will sort of go away because it doesn't have that same power in the way that the school's culture has been set up via policies, right, and mandates. So that's another worry. To get to your question, when we put these subject areas together, I think that whole situated context of what's going around, whose eyes are looking on it, does somebody have to file a report somewhere? Or is this just two teachers having a conversation over a cocktail napkin on a Friday night about a really cool instructional plan and how they might do justice to both disciplines? And I think when we can get into that situation where school structures allow these professional conversations to happen and the discourse to happen amongst educators who have that pedagogical content knowledge in their discipline as well as their knowledge, and then we can have like that sort of speed dating mashup of ideas that I think would be incredibly generative. And we could say, no, I'm not doing that song with your math facts. No way. Let me explain to you what music is about. And I think only then, I don't think we can package it. I think we need to create the conditions which allow professional people who have these knowledge, have shared students, understand where their students already are, come up with wonderful ideas, and then try them out in their classrooms. And I think that's where the most hope for the in-service teachers to really do thoughtful, infused, interdisciplinary work. I'm not sure that any single program can really do it because it takes those sets of knowledge that no one person might necessarily have. It sounds like you are a special person in terms of your music and computing knowledge, but not everybody has deep knowledge in multiple fields.
Yeah. So for pre-service educators, then, would you recommend experimentation and collaboration and communication? Like it's all about that. Just try things out, have some dialogue with other people and reflect on what you're doing. Like, what do you recommend for that person who's just about to become a full-time teacher, and they're like, I want to do this thing, but like I know there's all these like hegemonic influences and like all the power structures that be, like what do I do? How do you help them out?
I think this is where you dive into the deep end in terms of teachers. I think if they're asking those questions, that's a great place to be. I'm a big believer on the critical praxis cycle of thinking about a particular goal in your classroom that's influenced by theory and research, and then going through sort of a study cycle in your own classroom and on your own classroom teaching experience, back to setting the goals and thinking about metrics. And then, am I doing this? Well, yes, I probably am furthering hegemonic, course, but what can I do next time to further disrupt that, right? Because any of us who have taught in the classroom know that, like, please don't come visit me my first year. I'm just trying things out. I will get better. And that's the way it's supposed to be. But the second year, we should be seeing things get better. And then the third year, but it's not getting better into settling on the perfect, I'm going to date myself, transparency slide. It's not like this is day 4 of the curriculum. I have perfected my teaching practice, but it's digging deeper into those questions and simultaneously considering, the content, the pedagogy, the student experience, the climate of the classroom, and your own growth as an educator to go deeper and harder each year, because that's, we don't want to be in complacency.
Right.
That's not a goal of teaching and education. It's adjusting and growing as well along with our students, but maybe in a different way.
Yeah, I like that. That really resonates with my own approach. I would have students come back to the classroom, whatever subject area I was working with, and they'd be like, why didn't we do it this way when I was in the class? Well, because every year I'm like trying new things and iterating and learning and etc. But I say that having worked in a district where like they mandated specific lesson plans on specific days, and it was the same every single year. You weren't allowed to change them. You had to be teaching the exact same thing every day. It wasn't evolving with the times. It wasn't changing with student interests and needs. Or this particular district had over 50 elementary schools, and all 50 of them were very different in terms of like demographics and needs and interests, etc. But they all were teaching the exact same thing. And it's like, okay, this is not ideal. Like, who is this easy for? Is it for you as an administrator, for the teachers, or for the students? Because it doesn't seem like you're really taking into account what the students want to learn.
It's almost the colorblind view of what, equality looks right. Everybody's on the same page, right? This is fair.
Yeah, that definitely hits home. The very first class that I taught in that district it was supposed to be a class on like singing about being back to school, and it was all in English. And the class that I was working with, not a single one of the kids spoke English, and it was a 3 grade level combined class. So I was like, all right, well, already on the very first lesson, your curriculum is not designed for these kids. So fail right off the bat.
This excerpt of the CSK8 podcast is from episode number 67, which is titled Exploring Computer Science with Joanna Goode.